it's not ideal, like you pointed out. It's not the perfect solution, but it's rare that you get perfect solutions in the legal system anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And one of the things that we've talked about too is that when you have these long drawn out legal situations, it really in some ways becomes almost like a kind of a war of attrition, right? Like trench warfare. And I think but we also know that just like in war, sometimes you have to make some difficult decisions, and sometimes you have to sacrifice some people or cut some things loose, right? And I think that's what happened here. And I can just tell you again, from being connected behind the scenes and hearing from my sources, that this was not a decision that was made lightly. That Manson and his team, they fought this as long as they could. Like, he didn't want to do this. Nobody wants to do this, right? But he was simply stuck between a rock and a hard place. He's not making money. His funds are dwindling. My sense is that he's in a precarious financial situation now. I don't mean like he's going to be homeless or out on the streets, but I mean that he's, relatively speaking, people know what I'm saying. He's in a precarious financial situation, and he still has a long road in front of him with this lawsuit against Elle McGuire and Evan Rachel Wood. And unfortunately, because the LA DA, George Gascon, refuses to announce that the criminal investigation is over, even though everyone and their dog knows that it's over, because the LASD has already said they gave him the file and they closed the case basically. But because it's not politically expedient for the DA to close the case publicly, he's not doing that. And so Manson has still got all this criminal bullshit that's hanging over his head as well. And so I think people just need to understand. I know some people are disappointed in this they wanted Manson to keep fighting Esme, but I think people need to understand that this has taken its toll, and he only has a limited number of positions or moves on the chessboard that he can make. So sounds like to me this is something that you think is very understandable and normal, and there's nothing to be alarmed about here from his perspective.
Oh, not at all. I mean, I think this is a very predictable outcome. I mean, the reality is most civil cases do settle anyway for all of these reasons that we've talked about. It is very, very costly to get your vindication. One of the things I learned as a lawyer is that when people come to you, because they want to fight something over the principle, you need to be very, very cautious, because those principles can be extremely expensive. And, I may not share the principles that you're that interested in fighting for. So.
That's right. And I remember you saying to me at one point that something to the effect that when a client starts talking about, I think it was you, that when a client starts talking about their principles and we're going to fight for what's right and everything, that the attorney is basically like, oh yeah, keep going. Because the more that you want to fight, the more money you're going to shell out. Right. And so I think Manson has gotten to the point that he's seeing, okay, as much as I would like to keep fighting this woman and stick to these principles, I can't let it destroy me, right? You have to keep the larger goals in mind, and you can't shoot yourself in the foot, even if you're trying to do it for honorable reasons, right?
Yeah, no, it's just the smart, practical decision to make. We would all, be more comfortable, I think, in a black and white, real definitive world where there are, perfect solutions and stuff. But that's just not reality. Sometimes you have to sacrifice the bishop to get your queen in position. And I think that's what this is. And, I wanted to go back to your point about how the mainstream media is going to spin this and stuff. I don't really envision that this is going to be much of a game changer either way. And the kind of example that I would put out there is the settlement that Prince Andrew made with Virginia Giuffre, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, that's, some type of admission on his part. It's he would have fought if he hadn't done anything. But you also, kind of see the counter narrative, the recognition that, well, she's another one that's supposedly doing this for the principal, and to save everybody. But when it actually comes down to the wire, no, she was happy to take the money and run. And so that, I think, potentially, changed more minds and more perspectives than, anybody who didn't think Prince Andrew had a problem before, now suddenly thinks he's got a problem because he settled this lawsuit. So to the extent that people already have opinions about who they think is right and who they think is wrong here. I don't think that this settlement is likely to change that against Marilyn Manson. I think this is actually much more likely to change people's perspectives on Esme Bianco and her motivations for bringing this lawsuit in the first place.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because, Esme Bianco, she has claimed that Marilyn Manson abused her in really the worst ways possible. I mean, we're not just talking about a little harassment here. She claimed whipping and cutting and beating and raping. I mean, just like basically like the worst, most monstrous stuff you can imagine. And I thought that one of the points of her lawsuit was to spread awareness and also to stop this from happening to someone else. And so, it's to me, as you say, it looks bad. It makes Esme look bad that now she's just giving up for a small payoff. I mean, I thought that the point here was to bring this man to justice and to raise awareness and also to stop him from doing this to other women. And now you're telling me that you're just going to take your payoff and go, and you're not even going to get a statement, statement from him of not
even going to get him saying, "I won't do it again."
Conceding nothing. I mean, she got absolutely nothing from him. Not even I think what Virginia Giuffre said in her settlement, where she basically said, well, I might have been wrong or something, right? Like we didn't even, there's nothing from Manson, right? And so I think that that's definitely one way of looking at it. If you are Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore, they're still in this game, right? How are you feeling about this settlement? Does this have any ramifications for them, either legally or in terms of the publicity, in your opinion?
I don't know that it has any huge ramifications legally, just because the cases were operating on such different paths anyway. I suppose it might be potentially helpful to the extent that Manson was able to use these other lawsuits as a vehicle to do discovery that he can't currently do in Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore's case, because they have that discovery stay that's going on while we wait for the anti-SLAPP motion to be decided. That's no longer on the table with her case, but the Jane Doe case is still active. So, he still has that opportunity if that is part of his strategy. But other than that, I mean, no, I think it's really just at this point part of the media battle now. She's going to want to get ahead of the perception that the house of cards against Manson is collapsing. She's going to need some way to try to spin this as either a victory or as, a rich, powerful man, able to bully women out of their claims or something like that. So I'm sure that they're going to try to sway the PR side of things, but I just don't know how successful they're going to be able to be with that. I think at a certain point, it just kind of becomes common sense that, when you see how all of this came together, the unity, the coordination with the timing, the statements, the interviews, all of that stuff, and then at the end of the day, all of these accusations kind of falling away one by one, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look legitimate.
Agreed. So, you've been following this case like me for a long time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that your opinion is that Manson is innocent and this is a hoax, this is a scam. So is that still the case? Is that still your belief? Kind of where are you at on this right now? And if you are Manson, how are you feeling about things long term?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's certainly where the evidence has led me at this point in time. Always possible that things can come out in a trial or something that would change that perspective. But everything that I have seen so far, is very suspicious about these accusations. And, the big thing for me, obviously being a criminal defense attorney, is, this lack of anything whatsoever on the criminal investigation front, given, like you pointed out, the seriousness of the accusations that have been made. The chances from my perspective that they have anything at all to substantiate that and haven't moved on it, that just wouldn't happen It's political suicide for the prosecutor, not to move on something like that, especially in a jurisdiction like California, with its political leanings and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to think this is nothing there, and basically, this was the end game. This was Esme Bianco's end game was to get that check, and so she got it. Probably isn't as much as she would have wanted. Like you said, if she was willing to kind of hold out to uh, basically reverse her whole position. If she's going to come out and make a statement in front of Marilyn, in support of Marilyn Manson after making these types of accusations, I mean, good Lord, like what isn't for sale with you if that's the case? So I can see where that's almost not even necessarily beneficial to him anyway, like you have destroyed your own credibility so badly at that point that, what is anything you have to say really worth anymore? So
that's a good point.
Yes, I tend to think that Marilyn Manson has not done these things based on the evidence, that I've seen. I have not seen a good reason to believe that he's done any of it. And so I think this is just, an incremental step continuing in the right direction. I think this gives him the freedom and the leverage that he needs to be able to start ratcheting down on the accusations that really matter, that really did damage him, and those are the ones from Evan Rachel Wood. So now's her opportunity. She made all those statements, that testimony she gave in front of the California Public Safety Commission, insisting she's got video, she's got photographs, she's not just here relying on her own memory. Great, Evan, then pony it up. We're all ready to see it.
Amen on that. That's exactly right. Well, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us, and just ask everybody once again to check out your channel. Andrea covers a lot of cool stuff. Covered the Depp Heard trial, and you've done a lot of stuff on the Idaho investigation and all of that crazy stuff still going on, and then of course the Manson cases. So everybody needs to check you out, and the links will be below. And yeah, I'm going to have a lot more on this coming out in the next few days, everybody. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe.